Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the City Chatter Podcast. I'm John Bernstrom, the Public Information Officer for the City of Grand Forks, and your host for the City Chatter Podcast. We took a bit of a break as we got through elections and all that fun stuff, but now we're in July. We're into budget season, so we're going to start our conversations again. And joining us, new City Council member Tricia Berg. Tricia, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So is the council seat warm yet? Is it still new? Is it? Have you gotten used to it yet?
We're getting there.
You're getting there. You're getting there. I can just imagine. So last night at a committee of the whole meeting, joked when you walked in, you had your first kind of mega meeting. We were there for 3 hours about.
Yes.
So we're going to hit on some of those topics. Well, no, before we do that, you've been on the council for almost a month. You're getting there for a month. How is it going?
Overall, really good. I'm hoping that people continue to reach out to me and do my due diligence with serving the people.
Are you, again, just new to it, a month in, a lot of interaction with constituents, or is it not quite there yet? Or I guess you don't know what a lot is, but is that happening?
I think it's hit and miss. It just depends on the topic.
Yeah, that's very much true. So you as a new, I always feel bad for new city council members, because whenever they come on, they immediately get into the next year's budget, which is a massive undertaking. You got a book yesterday of what, 400 some pages?
Just some light reading.
Just some light reading, yes. So you got presented the mayor's budget yesterday. Do you have initial thoughts? Have you had a chance to dive into it? Have you had thoughts of what you were hoping to see in the 2025 budget when you first came on? Just high-level thoughts of what you heard yesterday.
Overall, I'm glad to see another decrease in the mill, but I don't want to raise taxes for people. People are struggling. We're going into the next election where we have a vote on property taxes, and so that will greatly impact our city. So just trying to do what's right and provide the necessary services that we have while still making Grand Forks unique.
And that's my follow-up question. And this is, I'm going to admit, this is going to be a hard one to answer. How do you balance the cut taxes or responsible taxes to I want stuff? That is a balance. And I'm simplifying it, right? But you also heard yesterday about indoor turf and aquatics, where we've heard as a city that is something we'd like. Well, it's not free.
Absolutely. And I voiced this yesterday. I want to make sure that it's affordable for people to use once it is built. And so that also creates a difficulty, but that's something I really want to make sure that we're doing.
And is it something you consciously think about as you talk to constituents or as you look at the budget? Right, it's easy going through a store and saying, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. I'm a parent, right? This is good, and this is good, and this is good. But as a parent, you're like, yes, they are all good. We can't get all that stuff, or we can't get it all right now. As a city council member, you kind of have that with the balance of taxes and I want stuff. I'm going to ask you, because I'm not a council member and I don't have to make some of those decisions. Do you have in your head a formula of, all right, this is worth spending the money on, or it's not worth spending the money on?
I don't have a preconceived method going into this. I have a lot to learn, and I'm going to be sitting down for hours and reviewing all of this, and that's okay. That's what's necessary.
So we touched on it briefly. You also heard an update. There's going to be more coming up later this fall in that indoor turf and aquatic center. So before you running for council, there was the vote for this facility with the extension of the sales tax. Did you have a position on it back then before the vote was passed?
Yes, I thought it would be a great addition to Grand Forks, so I did vote for it, yes.
And now with it as a council member, and it's now in your hands a little bit, you talked about affordability for use. You got a look yesterday at some things that will be in it. Or do you feel like it's missing something, could use more or something? What are your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of decisions going into this, and there's a lot more money that is needed to get it up to par. So if we want
Sure.
the pickleball courts, if we want to have a tournament there, well, there's an increase in funding to make sure that it's big enough and tall enough to be able to do that. And so I think it'll be important to reach out to people and get input on what they want, because this is what people voted for.
Sure. Yes. Yes. And that's they voted to extend the sales tax. Voted to have this. It is I think it's a nice thing to have in our community. I'm a parent, right? So this is going to be indoor turf it's awesome. I mean, the Fritz Pollard gets used a ton. Also, okay, we talked briefly before the council meeting. You work downtown.
Yes.
You work downtown, which means you park downtown. So there was a discussion. There's new apartments coming in downtown, a new building, Franklin on 4th, across the street from City Hall, 7 stories. They're looking to start renting, I believe, this fall, which is going to be adding more traffic downtown. Not going to lie, it's not a terrible thing, right? I've worked downtown for 18 years. The amount of foot traffic downtown has significantly increased, and I think it's for the better. I think it's for the better, personally. But yes, parking. So talking about changing to 2-hour parking, the balance of parking for customers versus parking for employees or people who are there all day. What, as a person who works downtown, what is your opinion of parking downtown?
Well, I park on the other side, so I
Yes.
work on the south.
You're on the county side.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, and right now that is currently closed, the ramp going through that construction, and so trying to find parking right now is quite difficult. All the public spaces that are within the 2-minute walk area that we had discussed yesterday, they're all taken. But once the ramp is reopened, it'll be really nice to have that improved structure. But Tricia Lunsky yesterday talked about that we are serving customers, and that really spoke to me when she kind of went into that a little bit more. That, however, myself as an employee, I don't like setting an alarm on my phone to go and move my car every 2 hours. But if that's what it has to be done, I just hope that employers are willing to work with their employees to make sure that they're not accruing a lot of tickets.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Grand Forks is not a problem. It's a trait. It's not. I'm not. This isn't a complaint. This isn't a rip. It's just, this is, the sky is blue, the grass is green. This is a trait of Grand Forks. If I can't park in front of the business I'm not going to it.
It has been a pattern. Yeah.
It has. I remember when they built the Allaire Center, and it went from Memorial Stadium of 4,000 seats, 5,000 seats to the Allaire Center of 10. And I remember people saying, wait, I left 10 minutes before the game and I missed the kickoff. They're like, well, because you left 10 minutes before the game. It takes 10 minutes to get through that parking lot. And it was a mentality thing. It's a mentality shift. Is it fair to say we're all adaptable? We'll get through this downtown parking. Part of it is there was a lot of unknowns yesterday.
Yeah, and people don't like change, but I like what you said. People are adaptable. We just need to be open to process through that and take those steps.
And I think some of the questions yesterday that were asked, which are fair questions, we don't know the answer to.
Right.
What are the patterns of people? What are they going to do? Are they all going to use the parking ramp? Are they going to use that parking lot down there by the river? And it's one of those things of you don't know until you know. And you work with people a lot, so it's right.
Lots of unknowns.
The book can say one thing, but right, you don't know until you know. And so here, I'm taking a look at my notes here. I'm sorry, you're a new council member. I don't know you as well, so it's I took more notes maybe for this interview than I've done in the past. So just it's gonna be fewer notes in the future. So you talked about how it's going. The constituent interaction. How about interaction with other council members? How has that gone? Have any reached out to you? Have you reached out to any? I'm thinking more of council members, maybe not Mr. Friedolfs, who was elected with you, so you're both new, right? You have that in common.
Yep.
But a council member who's been there a while. I'm always curious when there's newly elected onto an existing board, how that interaction works within the board.
A few people reached out to me right away, and then those who didn't reach out to me, I gave it a little time and then reached out to them. And before the first council meeting, I'd had a great conversation with every single person, and there's a lot of great ideas, a lot of great backgrounds, and so coming together, like we're going to do what's best for the city.
I do think our city council right now, not that it wasn't in the past, but the city councils I think are unique because of the unique backgrounds. I remember it was late council member Bob Brooks in Ward 1. And it was a discussion, and it was about salary and about hiring somebody, and it was kind of getting into the weeds a little bit. And he goes, "Hold on, the only qualification I have up here is I had one more friend than the person I was running against."
I heard that the other day.
Only qualification I have. Other than that, he goes, and he came from a city administration background. You had a mailman, you have a lawyer, I think that's a unique thing with city councils or any elected boards.
Absolutely.
With your, we have talked in the past. You came to visit me. You visited many city staff, but you came to visit me before the election of, hey, what do you do and stuff like that. We got into a legislative discussion.
We did.
We did. So can you talk about the workings you do with the state legislature with your day job?
I don't interact with my day job.
Excuse me. I misspoke there. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I'm the advocacy chair for the National Association of Social Workers North Dakota chapter. And so with that, social workers, there's a licensing board in North Dakota, but then there's also this additional group that has a national chapter, and we pay dues. But we're advocating for social workers as a profession, but also just for social justice for other people. And so with that, that's what I've acted on.
Okay. How has your work with the legislature gone in the past? Right. You talk about you're on a board of 7 other people. Legislatures, a few hundred. Right. How has that gone for you in the past?
So I haven't been in person to testify, but I've done a lot of the written testimony.
Sure. Yep.
And then reaching out to the different folks, different groups, trying to strategize, because just going in and emailing everyone the same thing.
Yeah, that's hard.
There's an approach that you got to take. And so I think of Team Grand Forks and the approach that Grand Forks has taken, and how Grand Forks specifically has been so successful in the past. I'm really excited that we have that, and we're going to be able to continue that forward.
Yeah, thank you. I'm part of that team, and it wasn't a snap the finger and happen. That's a over time.
Yeah.
Right? It's relationship building.
Yes.
And all that stuff. I talked about how you came to visit me before the election. After the election, were you a firefighter for a day?
I was.
How did that go, and what did you do?
Oh.
I saw some pictures.
Yes, we went through like a simulation where there was smoke, and went to go save a fake baby, and Mike Friedel saved a Fido, a fake dog.
Sure. Yep.
Was able to operate the aerial platform of the fire apparatus.
Yes.
And
proper term. Good job.
as well as going in and trying to put out a fire. And that was the most intense. People do like a fight, flight, or freeze. I think I froze in that moment. So I don't see a change in career in my future,
Yeah.
but I truly value that time and the expertise that people walked me through. It was incredible.
Along those lines, I think that facility out there that the Grand Forks Fire Department has, police department uses it as well, mosquito control is out there. That training center we have is very valuable to not only our local firefighters, but regional firefighters. That's quite a facility out there, isn't it?
It's amazing. And the different tools that they have with the Jaws of Life, I was able to experience that. Just people, they prepare so much, and then they just snap into action when they're actually responding to a scene. And having that practice field and being able to do that is what's delivering that end result, which is saving lives.
I must say, with my job, working with other departments, and sometimes I may be asking someone to go on camera or speak publicly somewhere, and other departments are like, well, we'll see. Working with police and fire, there's almost that military of the chief goes, I got you one, don't worry. and it's done.
Yes.
It's done. I'm glad you had that opportunity. That is a very unique experience. Very hands-on and getting to see all their stuff. I'm sure they had some fun with you too.
Probably.
Probably.
A lot of laughs later, but when I was gone, maybe.
Yeah. No, that's all right. That's all right. So, all right. So we've covered the city stuff here for this. Lots of things yesterday. I'm sorry. One other thing. There was one other presentation. There's and this may be more of a question for Councilmember Friedolfs. But what are you aware of this pedestrian crossing type study. Now that they use the term, we're calling it that, but it's more of just people moving with the new development on the south end. How are people? Where busy roads? Where are people going to cross? Stuff like that. How are they going to cross? It was a very preliminary discussion. And any input on that? It was new to me as well.
Sure. I think overall it's a really great idea as we continue to expand out in that south end. But I know that overall there's a Safe Streets for All project or a thing going on where you can go in and put citizen comments into this interactive map. And I've gone in and I've seen people's ideas and their comments and concerns, and it's just continuing to build day to day. And so just popping in and seeing the additional things, it's going to be a great tool to move forward for our city.
Yeah, it's lots of times I don't want to call it different. It's just thinking a little bit differently from the standpoint of, as opposed to building it then figuring it out later. It's all right, before we get all these people here, where are they going to go? Because we're anticipating people being here.
Right.
And I appreciate that. It's hard to understand what your conclusion may be because the people aren't there yet. And like we said, people patterns are different, right? You don't know until they're there.
Yep.
And then I should mention with the downtown parking, they're going to have a public input meeting at City Hall on July 30th.
Yes, at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5:30 is.
4 to 5:30. So if you're curious about that parking in downtown Grand Forks and how they haven't made any changes yet, it's a public input, looking for input.
Yes.
That's going to be on July 30th. Yes, more input. I think Andrea from the planning department said it well. We're looking for all input. Right, we're not looking for positive, negative. We want it all. We want to see what works. Okay, so my wife and I, we have. You'd think you'd meet somebody and you're like, oh, you're on the same paths or all this stuff. No, we're completely different people. Completely different people. I'm a big sports fan. She's not. But we do have a few times a year where she'll sit and watch sports with me, and one of those is the Olympics.
Oh.
Is the Olympics? Do you watch the Olympics in your house?
Sometimes I do find myself watching curling during the winter one.
I think that's the unique thing in our house too, is it's not a sport that either one of us watch. My wife will look at me and it's gymnastics, and I'm like, was that good? And I'm like, think so. Looked amazing. Have no idea. So I have some Olympic trivia for you here. Not even trivia, just more like facts. When do you think was the first Olympics? The first Olympics? Think old.
1860.
No, 776 BC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a Greek festival celebrating Zeus, and it lasted 6 months.
Greece did go through my mind, but I didn't.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I find this one interesting, too. In 393 AD, the Roman emperor, don't ask me his name, and again, I'm getting all this from the internet, so it's true, banned the games because he felt it was too religious and was a pagan festival. Olympics were put on hold for 1,500 years.
That's a chunk of time.
That's a chunk of time, right? It's amazing they still remember, right? 1,500 years. And now this one I find interesting here. The first Summer Olympics, like our modern day Summer Olympics.
Sure.
First Summer Olympics had 14 countries in it. The United States was one of them. This Summer Olympics, that opening ceremonies, I think, are Friday?
Yes.
Friday in Paris. How many countries are in it?
Oh.
First one had 14.
86.
206.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's quite the growth. I feel. Significant, yeah. 206 countries competing in this year's Olympics, in Paris, starting on Friday, which means I'm going to become a swimming aficionado, right? For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to pretend I know what's going on and what's
some water polo.
Exactly, and I'll sit there and mansplain to my children, how this sport's supposed to go, even though I've never seen it before or anything. And
Dads know all.
Of course we do. That's right. Just ask me. Tricia, thank you for joining us. This is your first time on this podcast. It won't be the last. I'm going to call on you again.
Sounds good.
And yes, you have a lot of work ahead of you. Just so people are aware, you officially have the 2025 budget in your lap. As a city council, you guys will make preliminary approval on August 5th.
Yes.
And then from that point on, it's just preliminary. You can still make changes to the budget. You just can't increase it.
Correct.
And the final approval of the budget is in mid-September.
People reach out to me, let me know.
Yeah, and like you said, you have, I'm guessing 400 pages. I haven't counted, but it looks something like that for people to understand the booklet that was put in front of you.
Massive.
That's right. Tricia, thank you very much. So, Tricia Berg, I almost said Tricia Lunsky. I'm going to do that multiple times throughout the council here. I apologize way ahead of time.
Just call me just Tricia.
Just Tricia, because we have two Tricias on the council. And Tricia Berg, thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the City Chatter podcast. You can catch this episode or all previous episodes. We're in episode 27, I believe, 27, 28. At grandforksgov.com/podcast. You can see all the previous podcasts. And again, coming up, we have a couple of public input things. We've got budget approval. We're talking downtown parking, a chance for people to give their input on business going on in the city of Grand Forks. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time.